You are Locked On Wolves Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves take care of business. Rip away game one from the Lakers in LA. Final score 117-95. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves Postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow, please, on X at grborman13. Jack, you are there. You're live in LA. What's the vibe right now in Hollywood Boulevard after the Wolves just stunned that LA crowd tonight?
Yeah, I obviously am not in the locker room downstairs, but I'd imagine that they're pretty fired up right now. I think, this was certainly a team that I think nobody was expecting to come in here and win this game, let alone do it in the fashion that they did. So I think they sent a pretty
KG called it. But that's it.
Hey man, what'd KG say? You're not watching the games, man. You gotta watch games. The classic KG clip. No, but hey, I think this Timberwolves team, Chris Finch said at pregame that, I think this Timberwolves team has kind of carried a chip on their shoulder with and a lot of the national media not necessarily believing in them and thinking that it was going to be a quick series. And hey, look, for every reason they had that internal belief, they came out and showed it tonight. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, they've got 8 guys that really can all make a massive impact in the game. And when you look at, tonight, we'll get into it a little bit later, obviously, too. But, for the Wolves, they had 8 guys that played at least 20 minutes, and the Lakers only had 6 guys that played more than 14 minutes. So, wow. Again, I think that it's just not sustainable if the Lakers are going to have to ride their 3 guys that hard and hope that, they play better than they did tonight. It's just going to be tough when you consider that, Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves combined for 72 points, and they lost this game by 22. It's just a tough formula for the Lakers. And obviously it's a long series. Things are going to change, but Wolves got to be pretty darn happy with how they came down and retook home court advantage here tonight.
Yeah, still got 2 more to go, right? We're not hosting any trophies quite yet, right? No, not hanging any banners yet, right? But you're absolutely right. I do want to touch on that. The big 3 kind of feels like the Phoenix series last year where you stop that big 3 and all of a sudden the Wolves' depth is just so deep and so hungry. And to your point, yeah, Luka did Luka things tonight, but Austin Reeves, he was okay. LeBron, what do you have, 2 points at halftime, something like that? But we'll touch on that. We'll touch on the Wolves bench as well. Lots to get into. Tonight's game MVP, the biggest turning point, little preview for game 2 as well. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So let's just back up here. All right, T-Wolves Lakers in LA, 3 versus the 6 seed. This is where you put the kids to bed, Jack, right? Lights get bright, big boy ball being played tonight, all throughout the NBA when it comes to the playoffs. Wolves come out a little slow, a little sluggish out the gate, but man, oh man, Jack, they found an extra gear I'm not sure we've seen consistently all year. I think that was one of the biggest surprises tonight, but they went on to win the second quarter. What was it? 38-20. They won that second quarter by 18. They go into the locker room up 11, and then they go into the fourth quarter up 16. The backups were in this game by the 3.5 minute mark. Jaden, we'll talk about him. He was phenomenal. 25 points. Absolutely fantastic. Naz Reid, 6 for 9 from 3. Ant with 22 points despite an injury scare. He missed, I want to say, a full quarter. I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong here in a little bit, but Wolves take game 1, 117-95. How about just big picture here? Let's step back. It just felt like the Wolves manhandled their way. They ripped that game 1 away from the Lakers. Again, in LA, how huge is that just for momentum and kind of overall team psyche? How should we be feeling, and how are they feeling in the locker room right now?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think they've got to be feeling really good considering that, the crowd was just never really a major factor in this game. And I think that's obviously super important. I've obviously been in Target Center a ton. I was in Dallas last year, and Dallas was way louder than this. And I think, the Lakers wanted, all these fans just want to explode for, anybody that's not they don't really explode for anybody unless it's Luka Doncic. And it's pretty amazing how, any Luka shot, they just go bananas, but no one else, they, are just kind of, it's not really some outlandish reaction. I mean, you wouldn't think that there was a playoff game going on in here today. And I certainly think Target Center's been a better environment for the majority of the year. So I think, with the way that they were able to take the crowd out of the game fairly early, I thought that was really important. And I think too, like, how many times this year have we just seen this team kind of get into a slow start and just not really be able to recover super well, or dig a hole that's too deep for the bench and some of the guys at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter to be able to dig out of. And so I think, these guys deserve a ton of credit for not really getting rattled and just kind of sticking with it. And, being able to make some adjustments on the fly, and we'll get into them. I thought Chris Finch was tremendous in this game today. But yeah, I think, especially, Luka's going to get his, right? I don't think anybody's feasibly expecting that the Wolves are going to be able to hold Luka Doncic in a playoff setting when he's taking, 22 shots to hold him under, 30 or 35 points. I mean, he's one of the probably 4 or 5 best playoff scorers in the history of the league to this point, just in terms of points per game average. But I mean, again, Luka has 37 points, and then you hold LeBron and Austin Reeves to a combined 35 points, you're going to be living right, I think, because I just don't know that there's enough scoring outside of those guys on this Lakers roster, at least on a consistent level, to be able to beat you. So I think even if you're just looking at the box score, I think you're saying, wow, Ant and Julius didn't even play particularly well. Rudy was almost non-existent in parts of this game, and you still come out and you win by 22. So I think, you're all sitting there in the locker room. You're like, man, we didn't have our A game. Thankfully we shot the leather off the basketball, but that was probably like a B+ game for the Wolves, especially offensively in the early part of the game with the starting lineup, and they still found a way to get it done. And and I just think it's got to be a huge confidence builder for the starting five to know that, like, hey, we didn't have the best start to this game. It was pretty bad offensively with us, but then to have all those bench guys come in the way that they did on the road. I mean, we normally talk about role players playing a lot better at home in the playoffs, but when you think about how battle-tested Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are coming off the bench, I mean, it's a pretty special trio to have. And I think, today is the type of game where that really shines through, maybe more so than, a random night in January or February.
It's like the 98 Vikes. You got Moss, Chris Carter, Jake Reed. Somebody's eating in that wideout set. But again, to your point, Luka, 37 points. But between LeBron and Austin Reeves, and again, we'll continue to deep dive a little bit more. But again, you got to feel definitely a little underwhelmed if you're a Laker fan after that performance tonight. If I were to tell you back in, let's just say November, maybe even December, that this team that was struggling game to game, right? Win one, lose one, win two, lose two, would end up being not only a 6 seed, but would go into LA game one and shoot the lights out and take game one versus LeBron and Luka Doncic. What would be your first thought?
How the hell does Luka Doncic end up on the Lakers?
What happened? How long have I been in the coma? What happened?
No, for sure. But I think outside of that, I think my first reaction would probably be that, I think the Wolves' depth probably would win out, because that's the one super clear advantage that the Timberwolves have. I mean, I talked about it on Locked On Wolves with our guy Ben Beacon. Mm-hmm. I thought that the Lakers would win in 7 just because I thought that, Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves would be able to probably score like 85, 90 points a game. And that, having those 3 guys and how consistently great they've been together, mixed with, just a really tight shell concept defense would be enough to overcome, Ant and Julius Randle from a playmaking perspective. But that obviously is not been the case. And so I think, I just think it's the depth piece for me, and that's probably, that's why I think the Timberwolves have, found to be a really good balanced team on both ends of the floor. They've been top 10 offense, top 10 defense, and that's because they can put together a lot of different lineups that can do a lot of different things. Because you look at Dante, Naz, and Nickeil are all two-way players, and I think when you have a bench full of two-way guys that aren't just specialists and are pretty one-dimensional, like we've seen in Wolves teams of years past, I think that gives you a lot of optionality in this different schemes you want to play, different things you can throw at an opponent. You can play fast, you can play slow, you can shoot threes, you can get it inside, you can do a lot of different things. So I don't know that I would have necessarily been super surprised once we move past the Luka part of it. But yeah, I think that, again, it's just one game, but I would much rather be sitting here with what just happened than almost any other result.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
3 players with 20-plus points tonight for the Wolves. Jack, tonight's game MVP. Who was it and why? Lay it on it.
And on the Wolves, Jaden, I'm talking about the Yeah, I think it's got to be. I think it's got to be. Hey, man! I've seen way too many TikToks. That song is amazing. It's stuck in my head. Just all the different LeBron highlights are awesome. LeBron is awesome. But I think you got to give some love to Jaden McDaniels for sure.
Oh yeah.
And you might say like, okay, how was Jaden McDaniels the player of the game when Luka Doncic's primary assignment had 37 points? Look, I think Jaden McDaniels did an amazing job. First and foremost, before we get to the offense, he did an amazing job trying to stay in Luka's vision and make it really difficult for Luka to make cross-court passes. I mean, how many times did you see Luka get Jaden into a compromised scoring position and other guys have to try to help him last season? And then Luka would make a kick-out pass for a wide-open corner three, or a lob dunk, or whatever the pass was. I mean, Luka Doncic only had 1 assist tonight, which is pretty difficult to fully think about. I mean, for Luka to have 5 turnovers to 1 assist, I mean, that's pretty amazing because he's going to score. But I think it's somewhat like Jokic in that if you can prevent Jokic from completely controlling the game as a scorer and as a playmaker, I think it's much easier to try to take away some of what he can do as a playmaker than as a scorer. And so I think, trying to make him a little bit more one-dimensional, if you can, I think is very important. I think Jaden did a tremendous job of that. And then offensively for Jaden, he tied a career playoff high with 25 points to lead the Wolves. He shot 8 of 10 from 2. He shot 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, 25 points without a free throw. That was a team high. And then also had a team high 9 rebounds. I think when you consider what he's doing, playing at the point of attack as the main perimeter defender, fighting over all these screens, and then you have all these different long rebounds that are coming in from Lakers, missing a bunch of threes and missing tough mid-range shots. I think that's really important. And what Jaden does is he does a really good job of getting rebounds and immediately looking for somebody that he can outlet the basketball to. And if there's nobody there, then what he'll do is he'll just take it up the floor himself and get into a pretty good transition possession for the Wolves. And what I like most about Jaden's offensive game is it wasn't one-dimensional at all. I think early in the game, 4 or 5 of his first scores in this game, he made his first 2 catch and shoot threes. Then he had a really tough turnaround fading mid-range post-up jumper over Austin Reeves. And then, drove it in transition, missed it early on Luka, and then got his offensive rebound and put it back in. I think Jaden had either 2 or 3 putbacks in this game, which were all super important.
Somebody in the chat said 2 for sure. His only 2 misses, he put him back, but could be 3 as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because the 2 misses that he had, those were the 2 putbacks he had. So that was super important for Jaden. I think he had a 3rd putback that was off of someone else's miss. But hey, however he gets it done is super important. And I think too, what I really appreciated about the Wolves, and it's not quite the turning point. We'll get into that in a little bit. But
yeah,
I think what was really telling for the Wolves is that first possession of the second half, Anthony Edwards has almost a layup, and instead he passes it out to get to take what is a pretty good shot to a somewhat contested Jaden McDaniels corner 3. It just goes to show you how much confidence Anthony Edwards has in Jaden McDaniels. And I think that speaks volumes to Jaden. And I think that just breathes more life into Jaden. And I think when you catch him on these nights where he is super productive as a scorer, it's really important that I think you try to extract as much from that well as you possibly can. And the Wolves did an excellent job of doing that tonight. And we can get into, right now too, I think what was really important for the Wolves in terms of just kind of how they broke down that Lakers defense. I don't know if you want to do that now or catch a break. Let's
go to our quick first ad break real quick. We'll talk about the turning point. Yeah, plenty more deep dive from this one. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get some NBA future action while you're there. T-Wolves, 12-1 to win the chip heading into this game. We'll see how much that moves after tonight's Game 1 win. But it's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com. And get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Turning point in this game, Jack. Where was it and when? What really happened, I feel? Because there was a couple of ebbs and flows in this one. I feel like you could go in a couple different directions, but again, 11-point ball game at halftime. That second quarter, 38-20, outscoring the Lakers. What was the biggest turning point, though? You were there tonight, live. You saw it.
Yeah, I think you could point to, kind of late in that first quarter when the Wolves broke up that starting lineup and got Dante and Nas in there. But I think what was really important was the start of that second quarter, was when Luka Doncic went to the bench, and we kind of knew that was going to be his normal rotation pattern. It's somewhat similar to Ant in that, in more of the regular season games, maybe they'll try to get him out with a minute or two left in the first quarter, and then he sits the start of the second quarter, does the same thing at the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter. But tonight, Luka exited in that to start the second quarter, and the Wolves immediately went on a 17-5 run. To take a 38-33 lead, and they won the non-Luka minutes. Luka only sat for 3.5 minutes, and the Wolves won those minutes 14-5. And what I thought was part of this turning point was that the Wolves, Chris Finch made an excellent adjustment. Now Rudy Gobert normally starts that second quarter, and I think he wanted to see instead, I don't want to risk Rudy picking up a third foul. But what I also want to see is if we can just kind of spread the Lakers out, get the ball, continue some of that good ball movement that we had late in that first quarter when you had that Jaden, Nas, Randall front court. And they carried it forward into the second quarter, and they just continued to just swing the ball all over the floor and resulted in a ton of good shots. I mean, you want to go back to the start of that second quarter for Minnesota. Their first make was a nice little Jaden McDaniels bucket, and then Jade makes a three, and then Nikhil's right there following him up with a little floater, and then Naz Reid just kind of started the onslaught there, which was a ton of fun to see. And I think the fact that Minnesota was able to not only score with ease on the offensive end of the floor, but what I really appreciated as well was that that Nas, Julius, and Jaden McDaniels front court really rebounded well. I thought
really good.
The Lakers had 4 offensive rebounds for 11 second chance points in that first quarter. All 4 of their offensive rebounds led to second chance points, and a couple of them were Jackson Hayes, like right on Rudy Gobert in the first couple minutes, kicking it out for threes. But post All-Star break, Jaden, Julius, and Nas was a plus 7.0 net rating, which is tremendous in 138 minutes. But their defensive rebound percentage was 76.1% together. And that's a legitimately awesome defensive rebound percentage. I mean, that would be the best in the NBA extrapolated out for a full season. I mean, the league average is right about 71%. So I think the fact that they were able to, continually spread the Lakers out and then rebound on the other end, and the Lakers were missing a ton of 2-point shots. And when you miss a lot of, short 2-point shots, that actually is a better stimulant for transition offense than a lot of turnovers are. And so when you're able to run the Lakers off the 3-point line, defend shots in the mid-range or at the rim really well, and then get out and run, that's what they're able to do. And it was really nice to see, Jaden and Nikhil really be the guys that got out and kind of turned the outlet passes into good transition possessions. And Julius and Naz deserve a ton of credit too for the way that they rebounded on that end of the floor. So I think, when you combine playing with pace and decisiveness and rebounding really well, I think was super important. And I think that unit also kind of unlocked what I thought was the most telling thing from a schematic standpoint, just the way that they were able to kind of drive in the gaps and then kick the ball to the opposite corner and start creating a ton of corner 3-point opportunities, which was massive.
Well, Jack, too, all season long, all year, you have told me about how important for this team specifically is the 3-point ball on both ends, really. And tonight, I just want to highlight this comment because it goes back to what you were talking about it just felt like, and we've seen it towards the end of games in crunch time where kind of Ant goes a little hero ball, or it just feels like not everybody's on the same page. But talk to us about what Finch did in the days leading up that he really noticed when he watched the film, right? Try to put yourself in Finch's shoes. When he watched the film of the Lakers and said, this is the game plan, this is the blueprint if you want to beat this team. And a lot of it had to do with that drive and kick game that they did so well tonight. 50% from 3-point land tonight. Unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, one of the biggest matchups coming into this series was, when the Lakers go small, right? So their preferred small ball lineup, especially in the clutch, is Luka, Austin Reeves, LeBron, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Rui Hachimura. But a lot of times there'll be, 4 of those 5 guys out there with maybe Gabe Vincent or Jordan Goodwin off the bench instead of, one of those guys. But point being, Jackson Hayes is not on the floor. And in those minutes, what I think is really important is that you have to make all those guys work. And that, even though they have a really good shell concept on the perimeter, they're a much better team defense than they are in terms of having individual defenders. So if you have guys, and the Wolves do have 2 of them, and Ant and Julius Randle, that are able to break guys down off the dribble and get into the paint, the Lakers are not a team that's used to having to just totally scramble and rotate behind the play, because they're so used to keeping opponents out of the paint. And so tonight in this game, the Wolves did a great job of swinging the ball around the perimeter, and guys in the perimeter broke down their primary defenders off the dribble and got into the paint. Yeah. And then were able to just make smart kick out passes, get the defense in rotation, and just play off the catch really well. So it's like, all right, let's catch it. I don't have a wide open 3. I'm going to make a quick decision of whether I'm going to pass it or put it on the deck within, half a second or a second, and just try to keep repeating that simply until you have a wide open shot. And the thing is that LeBron James, for as amazing and transcendent of a player he is, he does not want to fly around the perimeter and work super hard on the defensive end of the floor unless he's able to, sees kind of blood in the water to get a swipe down on someone driving the lane or going for a chase down block or something like that. And I think the Wolves did a great job of forcing LeBron to fly around on the perimeter on the backside and just created a ton of corner 3-point opportunities that way. Because I think if you can catch guys where you have Luka and LeBron on the backside of the play, 2 guys that are at this stage of their careers are not really known for their attentiveness off the ball. I think, again, if you're just unselfish and decisive and, make quick decisions, I think you're going to be just fine on the offensive end of the floor. And part of the reason why I took Lakers in 7 was because I just didn't know that the Wolves would be able to do this consistently for an entire series. And so it was really great to see that they did it in game 1, right? But now the problem becomes, okay, how do you not get complacent, right? There was a lot of isolation where the Wolves found success with Anthony Edwards isolating, Julius Randle isolating, Jaden McDaniels isolating, in moments like Dante DiVincenzo isolating. But it's like, all right, over the course of the series, moving it, driving it, kicking it, is much more sustainable and will lead to more good offense long term than a lot of these isolations will. So I think that's the key for me with the Wolves, is if they can continue to get into the lane and then make that first pass to get the defense in rotation and then just drive and kick efficiently from there. I think it's going to be tough for the Lakers. And one other thing on that note too, like if you watch the way, Anthony Edwards is coming off a ball screen, right? From Rudy Gobert, let's say Rudy's setting the screen, kind of in the slot, and Ant's kind of coming off it towards the baseline. Like they are trying to force Ant and force Randall to the baseline where there is a guy in the corner that can help. So when the Lakers are helping off the strong side corner on all these drives, and Ant and Julius are more than willing to just make that one simple kick out pass to the corner, I think that that's great for the Wolves. And it was something that I frankly didn't quite understand from a schematic standpoint that the Lakers were doing. I think they were just daring, Jaden and Naz and Nikhil and Dante and Mike to a certain extent to make all these corner 3-point shots. And they totally did. I mean, the Wolves made 9 corner threes tonight. They didn't make one for the final 14 minutes of this game. But, again, to put that in context, like most teams in the NBA live around like 5, 6, sometimes 7 corner threes a game. And the Wolves season high is 10. This is only the 3rd time they've made 9 corner threes in a game. But again, how many times do we all watch a Wolves game and be like, man, I wish they could just keep needling at this weakness that this opponent has, but they just get away from it. Tonight was a total A+ performance from the Wolves in terms of finding that weakness, the Lakers rotating on the backside and continually attacking it over and over and over and over again and not getting complacent. So they deserve a ton of credit.
I just want to talk big picture real quick. Then we'll go to segment 3. We'll talk about game 2 preview. We'll talk about what everybody else is going to be talking about in the T-Wolves group chats and all that stuff. But just kind of more big picture here. Just think about Jaden and how dominant he was tonight. Going back to the regular season for the Wolves, the problem was always, man, you win a good game, but then you go lose to the Jazz one night. You go lose to the Spurs, teams that really nobody's taken seriously. And it's tough to take the Wolves seriously when you're losing games that you're supposed to go win, especially at home. But we always knew, Jack, they could go beat anybody on any given night. If Jaden McDaniels plays like this consistently throughout the rest of the playoffs, how high is the ceiling, I guess, for this Timberwolves team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Timberwolves ceiling is going to the NBA Finals, to be honest with you, because I think, the beauty of this Western Conference and how close this race was is, the Lakers are the 3 seed, the Wolves are the 6 seed, but the Wolves, I think, only had one less win than the Lakers did this year,
Yeah.
So, and the Wolves have beaten Oklahoma City twice while they're really shorthanded. They're not scared of Houston. They're clearly not scared of the Lakers. They're not scared of Denver. They're 4-0 against the Lakers. They're 4-0 against the Nuggets. I think they're 3-0 against the Clippers. And, I don't think Memphis is going to get past OKC. So, and there's all your teams, right? And I guess the Warriors too.
Yep.
And we haven't really seen the Wolves play the Warriors in this new, Jimmy Butler era. So look, I mean, there's nobody that this team can't beat, right? I think the challenge for the Wolves is just how consistently can you conjure this type of performance up, right? And look, like most teams that win the NBA title are top 10 in offense and top 10 in defense. And I think the only teams so far this season that were top 10 in both were, I want to say, the Thunder, the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Wolves. I think it was just those 4. And so, look, like if you're not totally reliant on one end of the floor to be able to win ball games, I think you can do almost anything that you set your mind to if you do it consistently enough.
Yeah, and like Jeff just pointed out here, Rudy, DDV, Non, and Mike Conley all had average to below average games, and you still go into LA in game 1 and win this thing by 22 points. It is just absolutely so fun. We could talk about this all night. Couple minutes left, though. We got to talk about what game 2 is going to look like, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, when your schedule, it gets packed, work projects, kids, whatever it may be, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, the non-negotiables like therapy, they become more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple, too. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, so just knowing what you know right now here, 35 minutes after game one, after what we just witnessed, the way things unfolded in this one, what adjustments, I guess, do you expect to see by the Lakers to try and combat, I guess, if you will, what the Wolves did so well tonight? And then I guess in turn, what should the Wolves be ready for the most in game two from the Lakers?
Yeah, I think defensively, if you're the Lakers, I don't know that you'd change a whole lot, considering that I think you're probably sitting there saying, okay, the Wolves scored 117 points. Like, that's not the end of the world. We they only shot 10 free throws. So we did a good job of, not forcing them to or not fouling them. I think you could also say, we got to get back more. I mean, the Wolves won 25-6 in the fast break points game. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that the Lakers shot so poorly from two, which, when we talked about, Julius and Julius and Jaden and Nas, but the Wolves had a defensive rating of 100 when Rudy Gobert was on the floor, which is awesome. And so I think that's probably the first place I'd start is you got to get back. If you're the Lakers, you can't get beat on the offensive glass. The Wolves had 11 offensive rebounds for 23 second chance points to the Lakers 20 second chance points. So you can't get beat in fast break 25-6 and lose on the offensive glass. So I think getting back is probably the easiest thing for the Lakers. And then from an offensive standpoint, I think you've just really got to do more to try to run guys off of screens a little bit more and get guys the ball on the move. Because I just think some of these Wolves defenders are pretty good in isolation defense, and you saw that. I mean, even Julius Randle had some good reps on Luka Doncic in this game in isolation. Yeah. So I think the more that you can, run some off-ball stuff on the second side to try to open up shots for guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent, I think is going to be really important because you need those guys to combine for more than 6 points if you want any chance of winning these games. So that's going to be really important for me. And then I think they just got to find a way to get LeBron James and Austin Reeves more involved in this game offensively early on. Like, I know Luka was on fire early in this game. Rui Hachimura hit a couple of threes in the first, 3 minutes, but he only had 3 points the rest of the game. So I think the more that, and LeBron and Reeves didn't score in that first quarter. So I think
crazy.
You've got to get them into the game earlier if you can. And I think, look, the more that you can try to make Luka Doncic a playmaker, if you're the Lakers, is super important because you got to raise up all these other guys in your team and make it more of a collective effort offensively if you want to win. And then I think for the Lakers, look, like Anthony Edwards still got into the paint quite a bit in this game. I think, I'm just pulling up the number here. I mean, Ant shot 8 of 22, and he was 1 of 7 at the rim in this game.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that you need to change up the way that you're defending Ant. I just think that you're probably hoping maybe in game 2, like, all right, I think our role players will play a little better. I think the I think the Wolves role players may not shoot quite as well from 3. So I don't know that the Lakers are going to switch up, some of what I was talking about in terms of helping off the strong side corner. I still think they're going to try to force Ant more to the corner, Julius more to the corner because it's a little more uncomfortable and they have to throw some jump passes. And we saw it early in this game. They both threw jump passes out of bounds, trying to throw those passes across the court. So that's something that I would for sure, keep an eye out for. And then I think, for me with the Lakers, I think it's just going to be really interesting how JJ Redick manages this rotation because I just don't think it's sustainable over a 7-game series. Like, look, I know there's 2 games in between games 1 and 2 and games 2 and 3 and games, 4 and 5, right? But you just can't play 6 guys 25 plus minutes and then have two other guys that you're like barely using on your team. Like, it's just hard to win that way unless all those guys are playing awesome. And so will they lengthen that rotation? Will they not? Something to watch. And then my last thing is, if you are Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, I think you have to continue to play unselfish basketball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Edwards had 22 points on 22 shots. Not great, Bob. But he did have 9 assists, and I thought the way that he didn't really force the issue as a shooter, I thought, he missed a lot of shots inside at the rim, but I don't know how many of those shots you'd classify as bad shots. I think you just hope that he would convert more of those looks. And so I think for Ant there, that's important. Then for Randle, I mean, if Julius Randle had 16, 5, and 5 every game from here on in, like, I would be okay with that. Like, I think you'd hope that he'd have a few more rebounds, maybe a few more points, like 28 and 5 or something like that. But I think that's the formula for Julius. Like, I don't think the formula for Julius is taking 18 shots. I think the formula for him is continue to just impact winning, do a lot of the little things, and then when Ant's not on the floor, try to take control and be a scorer. And if other guys are hitting shots, like, continue to, have your superpower, which is putting the ball on the deck, drawing guys in, and then kicking the ball out for open threes. And so I think he did that really well tonight. I think, there were a few too many times where he just kind of had the ball low, and guys like LeBron or Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura were all kind of smacking down at the ball. So I think that's probably something that'll get cleaned up in the film room. So I don't worry too much about Randle, having another game where he has 7 turnovers. Again, Randle had 7 of the Wolves' 10 turnovers. Wolves, after the second, for the majority of the second, third, and fourth quarters, the Wolves were sitting on like 1 turnover over those, 2.5 quarters. So I think, again, I don't think the Wolves have to change a thing, to be honest with you. I don't think anything that they did from a schematic standpoint was unsustainable. I think that it was primarily focused on letting Luka be a scorer, tried to take away his playmaking, and then just take what the defense is giving on the offensive end of the floor, but making sure that you're, driving and kicking, making quick decisions, and then, just, winning the battles within the game, man. I mean, the Wolves won and second chance scoring. They were plus 12 in the paint, which is awesome against the Lakers. They were 39-8 off the bench, 25-6 in fast break points. And the Lakers only made 6 more free throws than they did. And they won, 63-45 on the 3-point line?
Yeah. Recipe for success, for sure. A sentence I didn't think I'd say today. LeBron James's groin. What's that looking like? Jack, you were there live. Did he look a step slower? And other injuries too. Ant goes to the locker room. Luckily it's just a calf, right? Needed probably an IV to some extent. Naz Reid poked in the eye. Didn't know what was going on with that for a couple minutes. That looked pretty brutal. Again, we got 2 full days to rest, which is nice. You don't play again until Tuesday night. Late game, by the way, 9 p.m. tip. But any injury concerns for both teams that you're just kind of keeping in the back of your mind?
Yeah, look, I'm 26 going on 46. LeBron is in 1,000 times better shape than me. So I can't speak to what, a 40-year-old guy is. It's still crazy every time I hear or say that LeBron James is 40 years old still doing this. But, yeah, I mean, we just don't know, right? We have no idea what the extent of that is. I mean, you still see LeBron in spurts, like on that chase down block he had on Nikhil. I mean, looks as spry as ever and athletic as ever. I think for him, it's probably more just about he can't play at that speed for the whole game. I think he kind of has to pick and choose his spots. But, I mean, he said he's fine. So we got to take his word for it. Mm-hmm. And then, good to see Naz and Ant come back in the game. And I think you'd totally expect to see Ant have a better performance than what he did tonight, especially if Austin Reeves is going to continue to guard him, because I think that was a point of emphasis for the Wolves, too, to try to target Austin Reeves on the defensive end of the floor. So, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But, again, I think the longer this series plays out, the more important it's going to be, or the bigger the advantage is going to be for the Wolves in the depth department, right? Because I think, again, it's easier for some of these ailments to stack up a little bit more when you are riding 6 guys, as hard as JJ Redick is right now.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, let's end with this. What's the water cooler talk tomorrow at work? Just given the performance by this team, 22-point victory in game 1 in LA. Everybody texting in the T-Wolves group chat. 60-second kind of big picture. What's the talk right now? Talk of the town for the Wolves.
Yeah, I think it's just got to be that, it's really fun to watch the Timberwolves when Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid are playing the way that they are. I think
so true.
You see the way that the Timberwolves the Timberwolves starters celebrate the role guys when they play. You have Naz Reid make 6 threes. Jaden McDaniels scored 25. I mean, those two guys combined for 48 points. It's just incredible to watch those two guys when they're in a rhythm and when they're playing with confidence, because their ceilings are so high as offensive players. And when they have it rolling, it's awesome. And I think, again, like, if you can consistently extract that type of play out of those two guys, even 70% of that, even if they score 40 points together instead of 50, that's still super important. And I can't say enough good things about what those two guys did tonight. I know for our guy, RP, I was sitting here next to my guy, Leo's son, and we both just totally got up out of our seat whoa, when Ant had that crazy crossover on Rui, sat him down, and
one of those and
unfortunately
one mixtapes from Ant. Yeah,
unfortunately couldn't
seal
finish,
the deal.
But yeah, that is one that should absolutely not get lost in the sauce tonight. But again, hey, I think this Timberwolves fan base has been tortured for so long. I think you got to talk all the smack in the world. You shouldn't act like you've been here before, because you haven't been here before. Nobody's been here before, winning game 1 against Luka Doncic and LeBron James on their home floor in dominant fashion. So I think the water cooler talk, any Lakers fans, for you and me, it's probably our guy, Reggie Wilson. Shoot him a
100%.
text, needle
Reggie.
him a little bit, let him know what
crying
happened.
in his Popeye's chicken now, okay? Reggie's struggling right now, okay? I'll make sure to give him a text tonight for sure. Yeah, everybody's got to do their part tonight. Just so fun. We could sit here literally all night and talk about this game and chop it up, but we got to get out of here. T-Wolves take care of business in LA. They take game 1 final versus the Lakers, 117-95, 22-point victory. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there, all you guys that make us your first listen, all you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please go follow Jack at JR Borman 13 live in LA. Game 1, you going to be there for game 2 as well, I hope?
I will be here for game 2 as well. So we'll see you back here on Tuesday night. Until then, go check out our guy Ben Beacon, Locked On Wolves. In between
great
those
plug
games
there. Ben Beacon ripping it up all year. Maybe saving his best for last as well, like the Wolves during the playoffs as well. Make sure you go check out Locked On Wolves. Again, game 2 Tuesday, late 1, 9 p.m. tip. We'll catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then, signing out.